Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. So, Sam, are you going to start with me this morning?
Drew, you see that little red blinking light? That's there because you've pressed record. We've already started.
Oh, crikey. All right. Okay.
What? One day, mate, one day, you'll understand how all this works. We've been doing this nearly 2 years, right? I give up, you and technology. But anyway, welcome, ladies and gents, and everyone listening in to Drewling Samantics. What a seamless intro that was. Drew chopping away at coffee and not realising that he'd already hit record. So that's probably our least professional intro we've done for some time.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, well, I got distracted. It's very easy at my age, mate, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, cheers, mate. Good to see you and everyone else joining us. Thanks for coming along.
Hello, everyone. Cheers. I'm slurping the coffee. Sam, traditional as always, is on the beer. Well done, mate.
Yeah. I'll get you back on it at some point.
Oh, don't worry.
Anyway, you've been all right, mate.
I have, thank you. Yes, yeah, Nice busy week, bits and bobs up and down. So yes, all is good here. Yourself?
Yeah, nice and busy as well. Self tapes and prepping for some filming and stuff like that.
Good,
which is great. But and also getting ready for our wonderful guest, someone we have joining us today. Although I'm still a bit unsure if this is going to happen.
Hey,
well. So this is a friend of yours.
Yes,
that we have visiting today. But
very old, dear friend.
You claim that this person has known you since early days of your career, like from almost from the beginning. And I cannot believe that that's possible because you are easily 200 years old, and I'm not sure anyone else is that old. So I don't know how this is possible, mate.
Well, it was the beginning of our guest's career as well. So I mean, but yeah, okay. I mean,
I thought you were going to say it was the beginning of time. this big meteor hit, killed all the dinosaurs, and then you appeared and did some acting.
Yeah, we started acting just after the Big Bang. Thanks for that, mate. Yeah.
But no, so hence my my. Unsureness. That's not a word. Well, that sounded awful. Hence me being unsure as to whether this would really transpire, because you claim you've known this person for a long time, but unless they're a caveman, so
mate, there is only one way to find out, really, isn't there?
Well, that is very true. Shall I let our guest join?
Our lovely guest.
Yeah. All right. I'll click the button now. Here we go.
Lovely. And there she is. Looking gorgeous, I may say. Beautiful. The lovely Claire Harding. Good morning, Claire. How lovely to see you.
How lovely to see you both.
Good morning, Claire. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Now, Claire, of course, we've known each other for a few odd years have skipped by. But and also more recently that we worked together more recently, haven't we? Over Christmas, Claire was, as everyone knows, listening. I was producing and playing Santa Claus this Christmas, and Claire was a delightful Mrs. Claus. Yeah, weren't you, darling?
Check you out, Drew, with the many ladies.
I know.
Here's the thing: I met Drew 100 years ago, wasn't it, Drew?
And it was a long while ago.
It was my first professional role. So you were my entree into the business, and then 30 years later or something.
There we are again.
So there's two possible reasons there that I can see. It's either A, you didn't spend much time with him, so he wasn't able to put you off the profession, or B, you were like, well, if he can do it, it's easy. I'll do it even better. That's the only possible outcomes I can see there.
Or C, he was absolutely brilliant. And I adore him.
Now, look, Claire, we try and stay honest as possible on this podcast. The viewers are just not going to believe that. I'm joking, of course. Drew's been my partner in crime for a good few years now as well. So, yeah. But anyway, I guess rather than Drew explaining and me trying to guess at things that I've obviously heard about, the best way to start off, Claire, can you give our lovely viewers and listeners a bit of an intro to yourself about your experiences in the industry and what you do, please?
Yes. So it's a big question. So I started in Weekly Rep with Drew. Was it 30 years ago? I really can't remember.
Something getting on for that. Yeah.
Or 20 years, whatever. And it was Weekly Rep for Charles Vance Productions. And it was the most amazing experience. And I think because you can't do Weekly Rep in the way that we did it then. And I did learn so much. It was just such a joyous experience. And then Charles, for people who don't know him, was this rather, words aren't enough to describe him, but he was the last of the actor managers, impresario, and he took me under his wing, which was a mixed blessing. And then I worked for him, did rep seasons. He introduced me to my husband, Jack Wilde. So that was an amazing experience. And then I've kept working. And then 30 years later, Drew asked me back. So I don't know why it took you so long, Drew, to invite me into your fold. Where I see Drew now, as I was saying this to him when we were working at Christmas, as an actor manager. I just think it's really interesting that you are, because you had some young actors in that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were starting out in the profession, some straight out of drama school, and you're helping develop their careers. So, which I think is fantastic, because I think that that metaphorical arm around actors isn't there for a lot of people.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, I mean, I mean, you flatter me as an actor manager, but I'll take it. I like that. Yeah, I mean, we met working in Weekly Rep, which, apart from probably one or two little theatres, no longer exists. And it was my first job was when I left drama school. I mean, many years ago, before Sam says anything. But I mean, that was my introduction to the business.
Yeah.
I did 6 weeks in Weekly Rep. I started out as an acting ISM, and it's a fantastic introduction, which I don't think people get now. Which is very, very sad. But and Charles was an extraordinary person. I think all those guys doing that, all those actor managers, and they were all quite extraordinary people, and they seem to have left the world as well, which is a shame.
Indeed, and I think he was the last of those really colourful characters that he probably, because he was quite outrageous in some respects.
Oh, yeah,
couldn't necessarily exist in today's world, but he really laid the groundwork. Funnily enough, when I was researching Charles's biography, I was reading Donald Wolfett's autobiography, and actually, if you took out Donald Wolfett and put Charles Vance in, you could be describing the same person. It's extraordinary, that harking back to that barnstorming, 19th century craziness. But I think you're right, Drew. I think those characters, for better or for worse, aren't there anymore.
I mean, it's funny because he gave me. I mean, I'd been working quite a few years, but when I walked in, he there was a kind of joy to the work that and a kind of like, we're playing, we're entertaining, and that idea of entertainment that he brought inside and outside the theatre. I mean, he was with the cloaks, the canes, the hats, the bravura and love of life he brought onto the stage. And I think we're at risk of taking it a little bit too seriously these days. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I guess with all these things, it's a balance, isn't it? Because I think you're right. There was a performance all the way with Charles, and probably would hit against employment law in many respects now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those real characters. I was interviewing Colin Baker. Colin Baker, one of the Doctor Who people.
Yeah.
I should describe that probably better, but you know what I mean. Who was absolutely joyous and has been in the business for a very long time. And we were talking, he'd worked for Charles, and he was talking about his experience of him. And he was saying, what we love is a lovable rogue, and we love a character, and we love a creation. And Charles was all those things, and that's what we've lost. And
No.
he was saying his view was often that the business is now run by accountants rather than those sort of real creatives. Now, I think that's probably slightly unfair, but there's certainly a move perhaps more towards that.
I think business has taken a huge influence on
Yeah.
theatre. I mean, it has always been there. There's no point sort of denying that. But I guess in modern times, and particularly post-pandemic and with financial issues, we've seen a lot of stunt casting, bringing in names to sell tickets. We've seen perhaps productions treated in a slightly different way, in that the money is thought of perhaps higher up, maybe than creating just something incredible. And as you say, you can't kind of blanket that. You can't say, oh, that is how it is now. But if you're making the comparison from theatre of old to perhaps modern, then yes, there's definitely that change. And it's interesting you say about the lovable rogue thing, because I think the weird element is that to be memorable, there has to be something. I was going to say something wrong with you. That's not what I mean at all. But there has to be some sort of controversy or something a little bit different. I mean, if I talked about it before, and I like to use almost like a school as an example. When you have a child at a school who is always well behaved, always does everything correctly, and always turns in good work or acceptable work or works hard, they almost fly under the radar. Whereas if you have one of the naughty kids, I'm not talking about completely like rebellious, horrendous, you want to string them up and never see them again, but the ones who have that sort of naughty streak in them, when they then do something that is considered very good or very normal or very well, it almost flags it up more. So they're not doing anything that the well-behaved child isn't already doing, but because it's that change, because it's that naughty kid doing something different, it just flags more, doesn't it? And I think you can sort of compare that with the sort of characters you're talking about, and these people who created unbelievable theatre but were controversial in certain ways or were larger than life. And I think perhaps, yeah, we are maybe losing that a little bit in the industry.
I think it's a really difficult balance, isn't it? And in the respect that I was speaking to some of the West End producers, and they were saying the risk at the moment, the financial risk is so challenging and difficult, and there has to be a question for Charles Vance, who stayed in the regions, what stopped him going to the West End. Now there's lots of different there are lots of very practical reasons, but also there's something about his character as well. You know, what stopped him embracing that, partly because he pissed a lot of people off, if I can say that.
You're fine.
And I think, and also there's a sense that he loved the regional theatre, and he loved being able to be a maverick in a way that in the West End, there's such big money there, it's very difficult to be that maverick. And having that quixotic element, I think. So, for example, somebody was telling me the other day that on the Friday, the old traditional paid on a Friday in theatre, that he took that so seriously. And occasionally, they didn't have the money to do that. They didn't have the money. And so Imogen, Charles's wife, and Charles would take other little delivery jobs, anything, to get a bit of money to go and pay the actors, because the theatre wasn't making that money. And that takes a certain kind of spirit. That takes a certain kind of person. So the practical decision might have been to close the show from an accountant's. And that, that's not wrong, I think. If that show isn't making money, it's probably the right call to close it. He didn't do that. He kept it open. He took other jobs. He found the money somehow so he could pay the actors on a Friday. And I think that's mad, extraordinary, admirable, all those things.
I think he loved theatre, because I mean he had a regular. He was a great advocate of the amateur theatre, and I remember he had a fantastic column in The Stage for many a long year where he discussed amateur theatre and developments and that love of people and that love of actors and acting was what kept him going. He would hate to see an actor out of work. He would hate to see himself out of work or his show fail. I mean, if a show failed, he would take that as a personal insult and an injury. So anything to keep that going. which doesn't necessarily tick the boxes if you're the red and the black. But you talk about, sorry, Claire,
no,
you were going to say something. Go.
I was going to say that, funnily enough, he had this sort of, as you know, Drew, he had a towering ego and trumpeted constantly about what he had achieved. But in researching this book, I'm also hearing stories that were never told about his generosity and how he offered opportunities to people, and when actors were, exactly as you say, Drew, were out of work, that he came to them and said, look, I can sort you out, I can help you with it. And those things he didn't trumpet. So it's there's in some of the research papers I've got, there's an application for him for a knighthood. Now, I don't really know how these things work, but there's an application being written by this MP or something, and a lot of it is extraordinary hyperbole. But the main case, which seems to me absolutely accurate, is that all the honours go to West End people, and they don't go to people like Charles, who kept regional theatre going, and not only employing actors, but administration staff, backstage crew, theatres open that would have closed otherwise, audience having local theatre. So he was doing some amazing things, as well as. And I wonder, as you say, the sort of the cloak and the medallion didn't help people see what great work he was doing.
Yeah. Now, talking of huge characters and reprobates and I think you know where we're going. And you spoke very briefly about meeting Jack, who then became your husband. And it leads on to the work that you're doing now, which is writing fantastic biographies. But I mean, Jack is, I think, an unpolished national treasure. I think he's one of the. No, I think he is. I think he we lost him far too young, but I think he's one of he's. I mean, there'll never be a greater child performance ever in any movie other than Jack and Oliver. I don't think that can ever be beaten. That sits at the top. It's like long jump records and high jump records and people who run the 100 meters in 9.9. It will never be done because it's an extraordinary performance, and it was an extraordinary performance by an extraordinary actor. And you then. I mean, I met him a couple of times, all too briefly, through your good self, and I mean, he was almost just. I mean, tell us more about Jack and your relationship, and how they then went from being this enormously talented actor, and you still are, and you're still working. But I mean, to then start writing with Jack this amazing autobiography, which then becomes this wonderful skill that you have and talent.
Thank you.
I
don't agree, but thank you. I mean, Jack he shares with Charles an absolute love of people, of life, of theatre, of film, and you talked about Charles being interested in amateur theatre. Jack just loved everything. We would go to an amateur show and he'd go, oh, that's bloody brilliant. There was no ego about him. He just loved everything. Because funnily enough, when Charles said to me, darling, you're going to talk, he sent me to Torquay. He went, no, you're going to Worthing. I thought, okay, when, how, what would you mean? To do pantomime. That was after meeting Drew. Sent me away. And I was trying to get digs down in Worthing, and I rang a lady, and she said, oh, you can't stay here. I've got Jack Wilde staying here. And I thought, oh, okay. And I said, I'm really sorry, but there's nowhere else. And so and she said, well, you'll have to be very quiet. You'll have to walk very quietly past his room. Don't come down to breakfast at the same time as him. And I was like, oh, fine, you crazy woman. And I thought, oh, Jack must be an arse. If he insists on this treatment, he must be an absolute arse. But I'll stay. I did. I used to creep past his room, get down to breakfast really early. And the first time he came in and I was in the kitchen and he opened the door and I was like, oh God, I'm in the kitchen and he's come and I shouldn't be here. And he went, hello, how are you? I thought, oh, you're lovely. And that was it. He had no ego. That was something which I think is interesting about a profession, something someone had put on him. You know, you've got to treat him in this way. That was not Jack at all. He was what you saw. He was so easygoing, so nice, so embraced the world. Embraced the world too much, probably, which when he had his drinking career for a good few years. Yeah, I forgot what the question was, Drew. Where was I going?
No, just like because then obviously, you know, we know Jack, you know, he had this wonderful career, a very colourful life. But then I mean, I think you helped him or you worked with him on A Dodger's Life, his autobiography.
Yeah, he'd started writing that. Well, coming out of therapy, actually. I think often they say it's helpful to coming out of AA. It's helpful to write this down. And he'd written, and so he'd written many chapters. And funnily enough, he said to me, "Would you like to read my chapters? It's like you can come up and see my etchings." And they were just not him. They were just, let me think what a book would sound like. And I said, but I just feel it's lost you. I think we want to know you. For me, when I read a biography or autobiography, I want to feel I hear them.
Hear the voice.
The ghostwriter on top. So I said, well, because from that moment that when he popped his head around the kitchen door and said, "Can I have a coffee?" We were together till he died. Literally constantly. Slightly crazy. But I said, let's start again with the book and I'll record you. So I just interviewed him saying, well, tell me about this, tell me about that, to keep his natural voice in it. So some of the recording, you get him saying, he'll do 20 minutes, and then he go, "No, fuck it, that's a lie. Sorry, let me try again."
Brilliant.
Oh, wonderful.
A performer to the end, nonetheless. And I mean, it's almost a tribute to him talking to you now. We actually, didn't we, Drew, had an episode not that long ago where we talked about child stars and performers who in childhood had been enormous or had started careers at such an early point, and actually a vast majority of them then go on not to do anything. And it's almost like the industry kind of puts them off, but they're exhausted almost immediately from particularly such enormous roles, as we say, like Oliver and various other things like that. But you do have those few that it's merely the first stepping stone, albeit an enormous one, to go on and have massively successful and varied careers. And I mean, obviously for you, he was your partner, but you say there are things that he would tell you or you'd read about and would shock you and things. And there's just, what was it like almost experiencing your husband again through historical recollection and things he was talking about? Was it the second time around, as you say, when you read it first time, it was very much this is a book, this is how it should be written, rather than just memories and stories? Was there a lot that shocked you, or did it just all sort of come together and you could almost predict some of the craziness?
I think the challenge with Jack is that he thought everyone was lovely. So each time I said, well, tell me what they were like, he'd go, oh, they were lovely. I'm like, okay. Really? No, but they really were. They were really lovely. And I said, how else would you describe them? So the thing is, he had such a big heart. And so I think the shocking things, we're used to thinking of shocking as excess. And yes, he did have excess. But so also some of the shocking things were like, he would say when he was for the Oscar ceremony, he was asked to sing a song with Frank Sinatra. Wow. And he went, fuck it, I don't want to do that. And And his agent said, no, Jack, it's the Oscars. It's Frank Sinatra. You're going to sing the song. And he was like, really don't want to do that. And so he goes to great lengths to get out of singing this song, which involved a sort of sombrero and messing up the line. He thought, well, if I mess it up, they'll think, well, he can't do it. He's rubbish. We'll not have him. And so I think almost those are the things that I find quite shocking, because I think, you have to, if you have to do it, you have to do it. Less so than that I drank 3 bottles of vodka and I was dying. That's because in some respects, I think we hear those stories a lot about celebrities and we kind of understand those pressures. What I think is interesting, as you say, you talked about child stars, is the fact that if you put a child in the business. So I think if any of us 3, I don't know, making an assumption, if any of us 3 were asked to sing with Frank Sinatra, was he dead? He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
So they won't be him then. But someone like Frank Sinatra we'd all go, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But so I think it's extraordinary that he's like, yeah, no, can't be bothered. I don't want to do that.
That is mad, isn't it? As you say, it's almost if you were asked to do something along those lines, something enormous, like to share a stage or do a skit with Judi Dench, for example, or something with royalty in one of the spurs of the industry, you'd almost go out of your way to do everything literally possible. You would fight to make sure that didn't change. Whereas he was doing everything in his power to go, no, I don't want to bloody do that. Well, so to have that kind of self-awareness and go, no, it's not something I want to do, so I won't do it. I guess maybe, and it almost links back into some of the things we were saying earlier, where theatre's maybe become a little bit regimented. Maybe we now feel that we can't say no to a lot of stuff because you fear the outcome of not doing what you're told. I don't know whether that's an element.
Well, I think you're right, and I think Jack was wrong. No, he should have done it. But you're right. I think it is I had a fantastic interview with someone, a West End producer, he was incredibly interesting, talking about the shift and changes in business and the expectations. And because funnily enough, he went as a very young man before his great career, he did direct for Charles, which is why I was interviewing him. And he was saying how then actors, you had, because we were doing weekly rep, the actors then, me and you, Drew, obviously, didn't need so much. You could just sort of point them in the right direction and it happened. Where he was saying now he feels actors, young actors, need so much more support to do the whole thing. So I think it's what's changing. I don't know. Is that culturally changing? Is it drama schools changing? Is it, as you were saying right at the beginning, Drew, the fact that there isn't rep anymore? Because one of the things I remember in rep was not only all the acting stuff, but I remember being told by girls older than me what it meant to be a leading lady, that you had a leadership responsibility as a leading lady, that, you had that sort of, you had to, what's the word, lead the company in essence, in terms of look after the junior members, do the publicity stuff, hand out the programs that are there to be signed, and there was an accountability for your role. And I think, again, that doesn't happen. That was almost the old rep piece.
I think you're right.
Lucky isn't there anymore. And you have young actors who come in, they don't know. He was saying you have to negotiate with the agent just to get them there at 10 o'clock rehearsal time. So I think the whole business has changed, and in some ways for the better. I think it's foolish to say golden days, crap. Actually things have changed, and they've changed really, and there's lots of positives from that. I've lost the point of where I was going.
I think maybe there's an element of fear, and that's possibly blowing it out of proportion. But coming into a piece as an actor, maybe younger actors or people just coming into it don't feel they have that freedom. So the fear is that I don't want to overstep. I'm waiting to be given my instructions, so I do as I'm told. So I'm only doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Whereas perhaps going back a few years, and particularly to rep theatre and earlier sort of stage work, it was right, here's an idea, develop it, and we'll go, no, that doesn't work. Yes, that does. But is there now that issue where an actor doesn't want to hear the no, that doesn't work, because they're worried that sets the standard, and then they can't pick it up from there again? I don't know. You hear, and I'm not going to say that I agree or what. I don't know the ins and outs, but you do hear now perhaps that certain theatre schools are churning out robots, performers that all can do certain things, but they all do it the same. It could be wrong, and I know that there is a lot of incredible modern theatre, and we have a lot of incredible modern performers, but it would be wrong to ignore the fact that has been mentioned. Sort of, you hear sort of suggestions that it's very difficult to cast now because a lot of actors are so similar, and there are so many of them. So I don't know whether that plays a part as well. And perhaps going back to what we were saying earlier, we're losing some of those interesting characters. Who knows?
I think that's a really good point, Sam, and really interesting, because I think, again, not harking back to, I feel like I'm 97, but in Rep, because it wasn't filmed, now you know all the stuff, social media, anything can be filmed. So I'm sure I made some very bold character choices.
Me too.
But there's no footage of that at all. So you have almost that freedom of expression. You could try things out. It wasn't going to be, you weren't going to be held accountable for it. So I think that makes a huge difference.
I also think, as well as you could try. Now we can't, because actors have a very short lifespan, and there are so many of us that if you don't get it right and you don't hit it and get your 15 minutes of fame, it could all be suddenly taken away from you. So people want to go. I think they want to get it right. They don't want to take any risks, or there is too much invested in that actor for them to take risks. Like Sam was saying, you've got to get it right. But I think, you work with me, so obviously, we're enormously talented actor, that we both are. But also, we must not, escape the fact that, you're writing, you're researching, but you're also a working mum with all that entails. So how do you juggle all these different balls, and keep them in the air so successfully?
Oh, well, that last clause I would have a challenge with.
All right, so how do you do it then? Will you
I'm doing
and
it.
still keep a smile on your face? How about that?
I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer to that necessarily.
Fair enough.
So moving on. No, but I think there's something about it maybe how you approach life. That I do. Why I became an actor is that I do find people fascinating. I think I do love exploring and learning, and 2 kids give you that a lot. And
amongst other things, I'm sure, but yes.
Yeah, but there is a joy in that. There is something that opens your eyes up to something different, to something new, and particularly with one of my sons, he's severely disabled. So learning about all that neurodivergency, and he's my son and I love him. I don't want to be talking about him like a little case study. However, there is something about it. It's very interesting to see how he does learn, how he does communicate, how he processes information, and it all sort of seems to feed back into what being an actor is, what is being present, what is communicating, what is creating rapport and connection and all those things. So I think and because of course Jack had his voice box removed, so he lost his voice a year or so before he died. So again, what does communication mean? All those terrible exercises you do at drama school, which bear no resemblance to anything. And yet now there is, it feels more like real life experience, I guess, of the importance of communication, of connection, and of what we do. And funnily enough, my son's nonverbal, doesn't speak at all, and yet we give him, and the clinicians say, yeah, well, won't speak, give up hope, that's it. And where I take him to music therapy, I've taken him to vocal coaches, because there's something about the creative's mind that looks at things differently. And with music therapy, my son just started singing now, and it'll be, so he's singing Hey Jude at the moment, so he'll go and it's absolutely in pitch. So from someone with severe learning disabilities, no formal communication, music has gone in and his created voice singing in pitch and a recognisable and in rhythm, and he's done this at 9 years old, and they sort of basically say if you're not speaking by 5, and I think, again, as creatives, we think, let's keep exploring, let's keep trying. And again, completely lost the point of where I'm going with this. Oh, how I juggle it all successfully, not. But I think if you stay present and curious about life, it is the way. When Jack died, I remember thinking, of course, it was, it's horror. But I just remember saying to myself, breathe to the next minute, just breathe to the next minute. And that stay in this, in this minute, and once that minute's done, there'll be another minute. And I think there's something about staying ever present, not looking too far back, not looking too far forward. And that helps with all things, I think. It helps my son, it helped getting through Jack. So if I had any secret, there's somebody called Spinoza, who that's, I think, an old philosopher.
Oh, yes.
Oh, Drew, you're so academic.
No, I just heard the name. I don't know much about him, but
well, I only know one more thing than that. But he said, true happiness is living in this moment. And I think that's, and I know we have a sort of mindfulness movement now. And I truly believe that this moment, if we can connect and stay in this moment, and each successive moment, that's a place that you can pursue to true happiness.
Wow.
Gosh, that was a long answer.
That's quite beautiful. No, I think that was quite beautiful. I love that. Lovely.
Yeah.
You've always had the ability to communicate and bring people in, and I mean that was nothing more noticeable than when we worked together at Christmas. And there were moments when, I know we both had those lovely moments when we had beautiful children in, and also those moments where we had those little pains in the arse that are having a rather wonderful time, but if I could just Velcro your bottom to the floor for 5 minutes whilst we do this. But you always you had that wonderful ability of just drawing a child in, and there was one little child that was bouncing off the walls, and there was a moment where it was, I could just see you going, I'd really like to throw you through the window, but actually I'm just going to hold you now. And you drew that child and sat the child down, and we had a comment afterwards from the parents saying it was wonderful how Mrs. Claus encompassed our child and included our child who was having a difficult morning. And it's that being in the moment. It was the most important thing, was to sit the child down and have a lovely time, which of course is what we've had this morning. It's been absolutely a joyous time with you.
Been fabulous.
I just want to quickly say then, Drew, sorry, what I loved about what you did at Christmas was, I think that you created a room of love for each individual. It was so personal, although we did a gazillion, I think it may have been.
Yes.
And what you did beautifully was create that moment of love for everyone in that room. And I absolutely admire that.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. Bless you. Right.
It's been a very positive and
checks in the post
episode. Do you know what's going to have to happen, Claire? Is when you're not here next week, Drew and I will have to tear lumps off each other because we've been
to address the balance.
Yes. But the loveliness has obviously come with your presence and your being here. Can I say an enormous thank you for both of us for coming to join us? It's been a pleasure to chat to you and get to know you. And I mean, from your perspective, I'm sure it's been wonderful seeing Drew after 800 years or whatever it's been.
Yes,
No, it's
indeed.
been
And I'm
lovely.
quite shocked that you say I'm not coming back next week, Sam, because I've diaried it. I'm coming in.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you
Well-
can come back, Drew. You can have the week off.
Lovely
you've got
stuff.
Nothing better to be doing. But no, Claire, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, we wish you all the best with everything going forward.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Claire. Yeah, we will catch up soon, and we will get you back on because there is more to talk about. You know, you're going to come back.
Yeah.
Lovely, Claire. Take care. We'll see you soon.
See
See you later. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Drew, what a wonderful episode with, quite simply, a wonderful, wonderful lady, the lovely Claire Harding, who just... we mentioned it in the socials this week, actually. She's another one of those annoying people that does a bit of everything.
Yeah, I know.
Very, very multi-talented. And also full of incredible stories and incredible insight. And not to mention that talking about her late great husband, Mr. Jack Wilde. Just a fabulous chat with a really lovely lady, I think.
She is delightful. I've known Claire for many a long year, and I've never known her not be delightful, happy, and as she said, in the moment. She is delightful and delights in everything, and is one of the most generous, open-hearted people I know. She's fabulous lady to know.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant having her on, and feel very honoured that we've been able to have a nice chat. So
yeah. I mean, I do have a lovely story about Claire that she didn't get round to telling, and we didn't discuss, but it was one of those moments where you say we met. It was on her first job, and in Weekly Rep in Sidmouth. And it's one of those things that you sort of help each other, and there was no sort of egos or anything, as she said, and it was for Charles Vance. We were doing a play called Towards Zero, and Claire was playing a young, flighty, very flirty young lady, and played it extremely well. And she had to leave a room. She wanted to leave the room and leave something behind. She was seducing or had a crush on the older lead character in the play, and she wanted to leave, and she sort of left the room, and she was sort of making eyes, and I said, and as she said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, how about sort of like wrapping your arm around the door, and you're curling your leg around the door, sort of like coquettishly, but so like a young girl, so sort of slightly clumsy but slightly cheeky. And she tried this, and it really worked.
Yeah,
but she got quite good at it. And this gesture got more and more, it got bigger and bigger and sexier and more seductive through the week, that it, you've heard that phrase, something for the dads. I mean, the guys in the audience were loving it. The skirt was getting a little higher, and it was just, she was loving it. And it was brilliant. And we were all the guys in the cast were going, yeah, you keep doing that, Claire. It's lovely. Yeah, we're loving that, mate. Do it more,
Amazing. But
it was lovely.
A multi-talented and
she's great.
Wonderful woman, and we're very lucky to have her on, as we are lucky when all our guests come to visit. We are graced by the presence of some fabulous people, and have been over the many weeks and months that you and I have been entertaining each other, or entertaining guests anyway. But all the loveliness and wonderfulness and friendliness aside, as I said a bit earlier, we need to go back to normality now. People will be switching off and going, I don't know who these are. They're being nice.
Who are these guys? Yeah.
So how about we come back next week? We'll have a drink, and we'll be horrible to each other. What do you reckon?
All right, mate. I can do that. Yeah. End of the loving. It's back to normal.
Back to reality. With a beer and some banter.
Sounds good to me, mate.
I'll see you next week, Drew. Everyone else, see you later on.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.